Hello, this is Kyle, also known as AlienTude, reviewing today this Trim Riviere falchion. Now, this is obviously a little bit different of a spot for me to be recording, but it is one of the very rare days in the middle of the year where it is not absurdly hot. High today is mid-80s, and I wanted to take advantage of that, so I have my tatami stand out, and I thought I've been wanting to cut tatami with this sword, and I figured, why not just go ahead and record my review right before doing that. So this will be a little bit more of an informal review as I go over my thoughts on the falchion, do some cutting, give you overall idea of what it's like owning one of these falchions. So I bought this secondhand. I did not get it brand new. These were, I believe, a model that Angus Trim made for Kingston Arms, who then sold it under their brand as made by Angus Trim. I found a listing on the Sword Buyer's Guide store for this, what looks like this same model, and it's sold for somewhere around $1,200 to $1,300. I'll put a screenshot up if I can find that listing again, but that's not what I paid. I bought it secondhand. In addition, this sword, the person I bought the sword from is a prolific cutter, so I know he has added a degree of sharpness to it and has also used it for cutting a decent amount. So it is certainly not in new condition. So looking at the hilt, we have a very traditional Angus Trim hilt. This pommel is one of his more common styles. It's got a recess in the wheel pommel that you could put a coin or some kind of marker in if you wanted. It's got the permanent hex nut system of assembly rather than peening. So theoretically, this could be disassembled and re-hilted, something like that. But it is intended as a permanent construction, not something that's easily disassembled and reassembled. The pommel is also blackened, as is pretty traditional for Gus. The edges of this center boss are a little bit sharp and a little too crisp for my liking. I don't have a problem in general because I usually am gripping it up like this, choking up all the way. But if I wanted to choke down and have the pommel rest against my palm and maybe my fingers rest on it, this would start to get pretty uncomfortable, especially when swinging. So that's one of the reasons I certainly choke up all the way, is to make sure that I don't interact with the pommel. Because the grip is long enough, that's not a concern to me. The grip itself is a kind of a really dark red that is quite attractive. It's got a good amount of dimension to it. It starts thicker near the cross guard, tapers in towards the pommel, and it locks into the hand really nicely. Angus Trim always puts really outstanding grips on his swords. They always lock into the hand very well, at least in my experience. The cross guard is a pretty simple one. It's got a little center ridge in the middle, tapers into the middle, and then flares out towards the tips of the quillins. It's octagonal and has a little bit more dimension to it than it looks like at close glance, but it's overall a pretty simple one. Again, this is pretty normal for Gus. He doesn't go for a lot of flair in his hilts, or his blades for that matter, and it works. It's also blackened. Because this is a used one, the blackening is a little bit rougher than you would normally see. There's some signs of use where hands have rubbed up against it, including my own, that kind of thing. But it's still in excellent condition. Where the blade meets the guard, it's a huge gap, frankly. It's not even attempted to slot in or anything like that. It is absolutely functional. It is fitted solidly, but there is what is frankly a pretty huge slot in the guard where the blade is intended to slide on, or the guard slides onto the blade and rests there. It's solidly attached. It's just not it's a different style of doing it than what you oftentimes see on higher end makers, where they really try to fit the blade to the guard and have that gap be as small as possible. Not the case here. This is something that is also pretty common on Angus Trim swords, although some of his newer ones seem to be making some changes to that. I've seen certainly different fit of the blade to the guard on some of his newer swords. So moving on to the blade, this is one of my absolute favorite falchion types. In fact, I think this is my favorite falchion type. There are a bunch of different types. James Elmsley has developed a typology for it. I'll put that up on screen. This, I believe, fits into the 3C category. I am saying that off the top of my head, so I might be wrong there. But if I am, I will put something up on screen. I love this geometry. It is wicked looking and just exemplifies to me what a falchion looks like. It's got a broad blade, has a little clip to it, and then the false edge clip into a extremely acute and wicked point. There's a fuller that is blackened that I love the look of. I love that blackening. Sometimes you'll see like a rainbow color that Gus will put in there, but this one is just straight black. I love it. The finish on the blade is your typical for Gus. There is some patina in a few spots, but it's relatively minor. I don't really see any actual rippling. The surface is maybe a little bit uneven, but we're talking incredibly minor there. The sharpness is, of course, outstanding. Like I said, this was sharpened by somebody who is a prolific cutter, so I know he put a sharper edge on it. Not that Angus Trim doesn't put good edges on his swords. There's a lot of distal taper here, not so much in the first 2/3 of the blade. There is definitely some distal taper, but when it has a quick transition up into that kind of like wave, if you will, where it narrows dramatically. And that's where you want to be cutting with, because the edge angle there is incredibly acute. There is so little mass to the blade right there and so little thickness that it makes for a very wicked cutter. So let's talk about cutting. Now, I've done a couple cutting sessions in the backyard with water bottles with this sword. One when I first got it. I don't have the video of that anymore, but I do have the short that I posted, so I'll put that up on screen. You can watch it while I'm talking about it. And then I also very recently did some more bottle cutting, and I did a short on that. That one I do have some video of, so I might put that up. We'll see how I decide to showcase it. But this sword is an absolute cheat code when it comes to backyard cutting. It sails through targets with no effort. In my most recent one, I got 3 cuts on a single small water bottle, which I don't think I've ever done before. This sword sails through these targets and is an absolute joy to cut with. It does so much of the work for me and makes cutting in the backyard, makes me look good when I cut with this sword. It does me so many favors in the cutting. Now, how does it do on tatami? Well, let's find out. All right, so as you might be able to see, this mat absolutely refused to spike well. So what I'm going to try to do is cut one piece off and then use that new end of the piece basically to try to respike it. All right, even with that frankly atrocious spiking on the tatami the entire time, those are probably the best cuts I've had with a sword in as long as I can remember, frankly. The ones that really impressed me were the middle house. I got both middle houses the first time, which is something I've never done before either. So, wow, is this sword ever good at cutting tatami. I would love to be able to take this to a competition, but as far as I'm aware, there's no falchion messer cutting competitions, and I wish they would change that. So yeah, if you enjoy cutting tatami, an A-trim falchion is just absolutely choice for doing so. All right, so wrapping this review up, this sword is absolutely worth the asking price. That was $1,300 when it was brand new. Now, I didn't pay for that, but I would have gladly paid that price for this sword. I love this sword. I wish I could take it to a competition and cut with it. Maybe sometime there will be a single-edged sword competition in the European style rather than, I know there's katana cutting competitions, but I'm not aware of any falchion or messer competitions, and I hope to see one sometime. But until then, I will just enjoy using this in the backyard and just admiring it also. It is absurdly gorgeous. I love this blade profile so much. This is the epitome of what a falchion is to me. So if you find one of these on the secondhand market, or if Gus happens to make another sword like this, or honestly, pretty much any falchion from Gus, they are absolutely worth the price. And if you are at all interested in falchions, try to get your hands on one. And that's going to bring this review to a close. Thank you for watching, and until next time, Alien Toot out.